The chamber was silent as Ambassador Day One walked to the speaking platform. Above him, the crystalline dome showed the stars beyond, thousands of them, representing the vast expanse of the Galactic Council's territory. Around him sat representatives from 47 different species, each in their specially designed seats that accommodated their unique biology. The air recyclers hummed softly, filtering and adjusting the atmosphere to keep everyone comfortable. Day One had been Earth's ambassador for 20 years. He had watched the Council grow more demanding with each passing season. Today they had gone too far. The Veltharian High Chancellor, Raxmal, stood at the central podium. His scales gleamed under the lights, reflecting purple and gold. He held a data tablet in his clawed hand, and his voice echoed through the chamber with absolute confidence. Resolution 7749 is now open for voting, Raxmal announced. The human species will surrender control of their faster-than-light technology to Council oversight. They will open all colony worlds to inspection teams. They will accept Council military observers on all their vessels. This is necessary for galactic security. Beside Day One, Hana shifted in her seat. She was a former fleet commander, a woman who had spent 30 years protecting human cargo ships from pirates and navigating dangerous space. Her jaw was tight, her hands clasped together so hard her knuckles were white. On Day One's other side sat Taemin, the chief of human trade operations. He was younger than both of them, but his mind was sharp. He had been running numbers on his personal tablet all morning, calculating something. When Day One glanced at him, Taemin just shook his head slowly. The vote began. One by one, the species cast their decision. The Veltharians voted yes, of course. So did their allies, the Kree Collective and the Morov Unity, the smaller species. Those who depended on Veltharian protection voted yes as well. They had no choice, really. The Quilith ambassador, Veen, abstained. It was a small act of defiance. The Quilith were insectoid beings, logical and calculating. Veen's compound eyes watched the humans carefully. There was something in that gaze, something that looked almost like respect. The final count appeared on the main display. 41 votes in favor. 1 abstention, 5 against. The resolution passed. Raxmal's face split into what passed for a smile among his people. The Council has spoken. Ambassador Day One, you will comply with these terms within 30 standard days. The chamber waited. This was the moment for Day One to object, to negotiate, to plead for better terms. He had done that before many times. The Council expected him to do it again. Instead, Day One stood and walked back to the speaking platform. He moved slowly with dignity. When he reached the podium, he looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate who would look back at him. No, he said simply. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Raxmal's face darkened. You refuse to comply? The Council will impose sanctions. We will blockade human space if necessary. Day One shook his head. You misunderstand. We do not refuse your resolution. We simply withdraw from this Council. Effective immediately, humanity is no longer a member. We owe you nothing. We will comply with nothing. The murmurs became shouts. Some delegates laughed, thinking it was a negotiation tactic. Others looked shocked. Raxmal's scales flushed a deeper purple, a sign of anger among his species. You cannot survive alone, Raxmal said, his voice dripping with contempt. You need the Council's protection. Its trade networks, its technology exchanges. Within a year, you will come crawling back, begging to rejoin on whatever terms we offer. Day One began collecting his materials. Hana and Taemin did the same. They packed their tablets, their documents, their personal items. The human delegation had brought very little to this session, Day One realized. Had they known somehow that this day would come? You may believe that, Day One said quietly. Time will tell. Hana stood and transmitted a coded signal from her wrist device. Somewhere in space, human fleet commanders would be receiving new orders. Taemin sent his own signal, reaching the thousands of human cargo captains. Station managers and trade coordinators scattered across the galaxy. The three humans walked toward the exit. Behind them, the council chamber was in chaos. Delegates were shouting at each other, at Raxmal, at the departing humans. Some were still laughing, convinced this was a bluff. As they reached the door, Ambassador Veen spoke up. Their voice, translated by the chamber's systems, was calm and measured. High Chancellor, perhaps we should reconsider this resolution. The humans have been valuable members of our community. Raxmal slammed his hand on the podium. They have been useful servants. Now they will learn what happens when servants forget their place. Let them go. We will fill the gap they leave within days. Day One paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. He saw Veen watching him, those insectoid eyes unreadable but somehow conveying a message. Be careful, they seemed to say. Oh, perhaps I understand. Outside the chamber, the three humans walked through the station's corridors in silence. Other species moved past them, going about their business. None of them knew what had just happened. They would learn soon enough. At the docking bay, their ship waited. It was a simple diplomatic vessel, nothing fancy. Human ships rarely were fancy. They were practical, efficient, reliable. Like everything humans built. As they boarded, Hana finally spoke. They have no idea what they've just done. Day One secured his belongings and moved to the pilot's seat. No, they don't. Taemin strapped into the navigator's position. His fingers flew across the controls, pulling up star charts and communication channels. I'm seeing the recall starting already. Captain Jinwoo's freighter just changed course. So did the medical transport from Sector 7. The engineering teams at the jump gates are requesting emergency transport home. Hannah settled into the weapons station, not because they expected trouble, but because it was her nature to be prepared. How long? She asked. 3 days, Taemin said, studying his screens. Maybe 4? That's when the station managers will notice their cargo schedules are empty. When the gate maintenance crews don't show up for their shifts. When the navigation buoy networks start going dark without human technicians to maintain them. Day One initiated the launch sequence. The ship lifted smoothly from the dock and turned toward open space. Behind them, the council station grew smaller. It was a beautiful structure, built from materials gathered from 100 worlds, designed by the greatest architects of a dozen species. The life support systems were human-designed. The power generators were human-built. The communications array was human-maintained. The docking computers ran on human software. They'll understand soon enough, Day One said quietly. When everything they take for granted stops working. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their session, confident in their power. Blind to the foundations crumbling beneath their feet, Captain Jinwoo watched his cargo manifest disappear from the station's docking computer. He had just delivered 300 tons of medical supplies to Orbital Station Kepler, a massive facility that served as a hub for the entire sector. The station's purchasing agent, a Crete named Vilix, was screaming at him over the communication channel. You cannot leave. We have contracts. We have agreements. Vilix's translator made his voice sound mechanical, but the panic was clear enough. Jinwoo checked his navigation computer. The new orders from Earth were simple: return home immediately. All human vessels, all human cargo, all human personnel. No exceptions. The contracts are void, Jinwoo said calmly. Humanity is no longer part of the Council. We owe you nothing. But the medicine, the food shipments, the replacement parts for our fusion reactors. Jinwoo closed the channel. He had been a cargo captain for 15 years. He had hauled everything from grain to weapons, from simple tools to complex machinery. He knew every major station in Council space. Knew which ones depended on human logistics and which ones could survive on their own. Station. Kepler could not survive on its own. His ship, the Morning Star, pulled away from the docking clamps. Behind him, 6 other human freighters did the same. Within an hour, the station's cargo bay was empty except for local shuttles. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated itself thousands of times on Station Kepler. Administrator Biora was conducting her final systems check. She had managed the station's power distribution network for 8 years. She knew every conduit, every relay, every backup system. She had trained the alien staff as best she could, but they had never needed to understand the whole system. Why would they? Beora was always there to fix problems. Now Beora was leaving. She pulled up the power management interface on her terminal. The primary fusion reactors were human-designed, built on Earth, and maintained by human engineers. The station's alien staff could run them, but only on automatic systems. If anything went wrong, they would need to switch to backup power. The backup systems could maintain life support. They could keep the air breathable and the temperature comfortable. They could run emergency lighting. But they could not power the commercial districts, the entertainment levels, the massive cargo operations, or the communications arrays. Beora initiated the transfer protocol. One by one, she shut down the primary reactors and brought the backup systems online. The station's lights flickered. Somewhere on the commercial levels, thousands of shops and restaurants went dark. Her assistant, a young Morov named Kellic, rushed into the control room. "What are you doing?" "The entire lower section is offline." "I'm going home," Aurora said. She stood and collected her personal belongings, which fit into a single small bag. "The backup systems will keep everyone alive. The Council's own engineers can handle the rest. But we don't know how. You never taught us the advanced systems." Beora looked at him sadly. "I tried to teach you. You said you didn't need to learn because humans would always be here to fix things." She walked toward the door, then paused. "The maintenance manuals are in the database. Good luck." She left Kellic staring at screens full of error messages he did not understand. At Trade Hub Nexus Prime, the largest commercial station in Council space, the effects were even more dramatic. The hub processed trillions of credits in trade every day. Goods from thousands of worlds flowed through its docking bays, were cataloged in its warehouses, and were redistributed across the galaxy. Veltharian merchant Krivalium owned a moderately successful import business. He specialized in luxury foods from agricultural worlds, selling them to wealthy buyers on urban planets. His business model was simple: buy low, ship cheap. Sell high. The shipping cheap part depended entirely on human cargo vessels. They charged fair rates, they arrived on time, and they rarely lost cargo. Other species shipping companies were either too expensive or too unreliable. Krivalium checked his delivery schedule and felt his blood run cold. Every single human ship had canceled. Every single one. He quickly accessed the shipping exchange, trying to book alternative transport. The prices had tripled. No, quadrupled. A shipment that should have cost 500 credits now cost 2,000, and the delivery time had changed from 3 days to 3 weeks. Around him, thousands of other merchants were discovering the same thing. The exchange's price boards lit up with red numbers, climbing higher and higher as demand exploded and supply vanished. Within hours, the cost of basic goods began to rise across every Council world. At the Council headquarters, an emergency session was called. Chancellor Raxmal stood at the podium, trying to project confidence. Around him, delegates were shouting questions and accusations. "My homeworld is reporting food shortages." One delegate cried. "Our medical facilities cannot receive supplies," shouted another. "The humans maintained our communications relay network. Half of our system is already dark." Raxmal held up his hands for silence. "This is a temporary disruption. Yes, the humans provided certain services, but we are the Galactic Council. We represent 46 species with vast resources and capabilities. We will adapt." Ambassador Veen stood, their insectoid form towering over most of the other delegates. "High Chancellor, with respect, I believe we should examine exactly what services humanity provided. Perhaps we acted hastily." "They were servants," Raxmal said dismissively. "Useful servants, yes. But servants can be replaced. We will hire new shipping companies. We will train new engineers. Within a month, this crisis will be forgotten." Veen's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights as they tilted their head. They said nothing more, but they began accessing data files, requesting reports, calculating numbers. What they found disturbed them deeply. On the frontier station outpost Terrell, the last human engineer packed her tools. Minna had spent 5 years on this station, maintaining the life support systems that kept 3,000 aliens alive in the harsh environment of deep space. She had trained the station's staff, had written detailed manuals, had tried to ensure they could survive without her, but she knew the truth. They would survive, yes. The systems were robust enough for that. But the station would slowly decay. Little problems would become big problems. Efficiency would drop. Eventually, the station would become uninhabitable, and everyone would have to evacuate. The station commander, a Crete official named Therax, met her at the airlock. "Is there nothing we can do to convince you to stay? We will pay you double, triple." Minna shook her head. "This isn't about money. My people have withdrawn from the council. I won't stay where we're not wanted as equals. But we need you. You should have thought about that before voting to make us your subjects." She boarded the transport and did not look back. Across the galaxy, this scene repeated itself 10,000 times. Human doctors left hospitals. Human technicians left factories. Human programmers logged out of networks. Human teachers closed their schools. Human farmers abandoned contract operations on alien worlds. They did not sabotage anything. They did not destroy anything. They simply stopped working for people who did not respect them. In his office, Taemin monitored data streams from across council space. The economic numbers were catastrophic. Trade volume down 40% and falling. Transport costs up 300%. Critical infrastructure failures reported on 72 worlds. He prepared a report for Earth's government, summarizing the situation in cold, precise numbers. At the bottom, he added a single line: "The Council has 3 weeks before critical systems begin failing. They have 4 weeks before people start dying in large numbers." Day 1 read the report in his apartment on Earth. Outside his window, the planet looked peaceful. The sky was blue, the air was clean, the cities hummed with activity. Earth had spent 3 centuries building galactic civilization, while keeping their homeworld beautiful. Now galactic civilization was learning that it had built everything on a foundation of human labor, human expertise, and human goodwill, and that foundation had just been pulled away. Dr. Unesio stood in the emergency ward of Galactic Medical Center 7, watching chaos unfold around her. She had worked at this hospital for 12 years, training alien doctors and nurses, treating patients from a dozen different species. She loved this work. She loved helping people, but Earth had given the order. All humans were to return home within the week. The head physician, a Valtharian named Kretal, approached her with what looked like desperation in his eyes. "Dr. Unesio, please? We need you. The patient in Bay 7 has a respiratory infection. The treatment protocol requires adjustments every 4 hours based on blood chemistry. Our staff does not have your experience." Unesio looked at the patient monitor. The young Morov in Bay 7 was indeed sick, but not critically. The treatment was complex but manageable. She had taught the staff how to do this. She had written detailed guides. She had supervised them through dozens of similar cases. "Dr. Kretal, you have treated this condition before. Follow the protocols. Adjust the medication based on the blood work, just as I showed you." "But the equipment?" "The medical scanner is showing error codes we have never seen." Unesio walked to the scanner and looked at the display. The error code was actually quite simple, a minor calibration issue. She had fixed this exact problem 100 times. But she had also documented the solution in the technical manual. "The fix is in the manual, section 4, page 63, she said quietly. "You can do this without me." Kretal looked at the scanner, then at her, then at the crowded emergency ward. "The pharmaceutical shipments have stopped arriving. We are running low on essential medicines. The backup suppliers are charging prices we cannot afford. How are we supposed to treat patients without medicine?" That was not a question Unesio could answer. Human pharmaceutical companies had supplied 40% of the galaxy's medicine at fair prices. Now those companies were focusing on human needs. The remaining suppliers, seeing an opportunity, were raising their prices to obscene levels. "I am sorry," Unesio said. "I truly am. But I have to go." She walked to the staff locker room and collected her belongings. In the hallway, she passed nurses and doctors she had worked with for years. Some looked angry. Others looked scared. A few looked understanding. At the transport station, she boarded a ship heading for Earth. Through the viewport, she watched the medical center grow smaller. She wondered how many patients would die because she was not there. Then she remembered that the Council had voted to make her species slaves, and her sympathy hardened into something colder. Admiral Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Horizon, studying the tactical display. All human military vessels had withdrawn to defensive positions around human space. 96 destroyers, 42 cruisers, 16 carriers, and countless support ships now formed a protective sphere around humanity's colonies and trade routes. His tactical officer, a young man named Kijun, pointed at the display. "Admiral, the Council's sensor network is completely dark in sectors 9 through 14. They are blind out there." Hyun-woo nodded slowly. The Council's military had always relied on human sensor arrays to extend their reach. Human technology could detect ships at twice the range of Council equivalents. Human quantum sensors could track vessels even through interference that blinded other systems. The Council had not built their own sensor network because humans had always shared the data freely. What about pirate activity? Hyun-woo asked. Ki-Jun brought up another display. Pirate raids are up 400% in the outer sectors. They know the Council cannot see them coming anymore. Trade routes that were safe for decades are now extremely dangerous. And Council fleet response times? Terrible, sir. Without our navigation data, they are taking 3 times as long to reach crisis points. Several colonies have requested emergency assistance that never arrived. Hyun-woo felt a grim satisfaction. He was not a cruel man, but he was a military man. He understood that sometimes people needed to experience consequences before they learned respect. On the agricultural world Terra-5, famine was approaching. The planet produced food for 16 other worlds, using massive hover transport systems to move harvested crops from the fields to the processing centers. Those transport systems were human-designed, running on human software, maintained by human technicians. When the technicians left, the farmers tried to keep the systems running. For 3 days, they succeeded. On the 4th day, a transport sled crashed in Sector 12, destroying 50 tons of grain. On the 5th day, 3 more sleds failed. By the end of the week, the entire system was offline. Millions of tons of crops sat rotting in the fields while the processing centers stood empty. The planet's government sent desperate requests to the Council for help. The Council sent a team of Veltharian engineers to assess the problem. They spent 2 days examining the transport systems, then filed a report stating that repairs would take at least 6 months and would cost more than building a new system from scratch. Terra-5 would miss this year's harvest. 16 worlds would go hungry. At the Veltharian War College, military strategists gathered for an emergency conference. Fleet Commander Zolver stood at the head of the table, his scales showing stress patterns of gray and pale purple. "Gentlemen," he began, "we must face reality. Our fleet coordination depends on human quantum computing networks. Without access to those networks, our response time to threats has tripled. Our long-range sensors are blind. Our navigation accuracy has dropped to unacceptable levels." An intelligence officer stood. "Commander, we have analyzed the situation. The humans did not simply provide services. They built the underlying infrastructure that our entire military depends upon. We built our systems on top of theirs, never considering what would happen if they left. Can we rebuild these systems ourselves?" "Yes, sir. In approximately 10 to 15 years at a cost of several trillion credits." The room fell silent. Another officer spoke up. "What about military action against human space? Force them to return?" Fleet Commander Zolver laughed bitterly. "With what? Our navigation systems are so degraded that any fleet we send into human territory would likely get lost. And even if we reach them, the humans know our every capability. They know our every weakness. They built most of our equipment. A war with humanity would be a disaster. Back on Earth, the human government convened a special session. The chamber was filled with representatives from every colony, every territory, every major city. Day one sat in the diplomatic section. While Hannah represented military concerns and Taemin covered economic matters, a representative from Europa colony stood. We are receiving thousands of requests for humanitarian assistance. Medical supplies, food, engineering help. People are dying out there. Should we not help them? Jiho, a relief coordinator who had spent decades organizing humanitarian missions, stood as well. I agree. These are innocent people suffering for the decisions of their leaders. We have the resources. We should act. Hannah stood, her voice cold and firm. We offered help for 300 years. We built their civilization for them. We shared our technology, our expertise, our labor. They repaid us by voting to make us their servants. Now they learn what it means to stand alone. The chamber erupted in argument. Some agreed with Jiho, believing humanitarian aid was a moral imperative. Others agreed with Hannah, believing the council needed to feel the full weight of their decision. Day one listened to both sides, saying nothing. He had cast his vote when he walked out of the council chamber. Now he would let his people decide their own path. At the Quilith homeworld, Ambassador Veen presented their findings to the Hive Mothers, the ancient leaders of their species. Veen had spent weeks compiling data, analyzing reports, calculating projections. Honored Mothers, Veen said, the situation is catastrophic. Humans controlled or maintained 63% of critical galactic infrastructure. Food distribution networks, medical supply chains, communications relays, sensor arrays, power systems, and transportation networks. All of these are failing. The eldest Hive Mother, her chitin worn smooth by centuries of life, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. What are the projected casualties? If current trends continue, we estimate 800 million deaths within 3 months. Complete societal collapse in 12 of the smaller species within 6 months. And Chancellor Raxmill's response? He continues to insist this is temporary. He has ordered propaganda campaigns blaming humans for sabotage, though we have found no evidence of sabotage. The humans simply left. The Hive Mother was quiet for a long moment. The Chancellor's pride will kill billions. We must act. The Veltharian colony ship Eternal Dawn carried 30,000 civilians to their new home, a planet in the Outer Territories. It was a routine journey, one that had been made thousands of times before. The ship's navigation system plotted the jump through faster-than-light space, using coordinates that had always been reliable, but those coordinates had always been updated by human navigation buoys. Automated stations that mapped the shifting currents of FTL space. Without constant updates, the maps were incomplete. Dangerous, the Eternal Dawn jumped. It never arrived at its destination. Search and rescue teams tried to find the ship, but without human long-range sensors, their efforts were nearly hopeless. The vastness of space swallowed the vessel and its 30,000 souls without a trace. It was not the first ship to go missing. It would not be the last. On Earth, Jiho watched the news reports with tears running down his face. He was a logistics expert, a man who had spent his entire career organizing relief supplies and emergency aid. He knew exactly what was happening across the galaxy. He knew the numbers. 800 million dead. The number grew every day. We have to help them, he said to the others in the conference room. Day one, Hannah and Taemin sat with him. Along with other key figures from Earth's government, Hannah's expression was stone. They voted to enslave us. The leaders voted, Ko shot back. Not the children dying in hospitals because medicine is not arriving. Not the farmers watching their crops rot. Not the 30,000 people on that colony ship who are probably floating dead in space right now. We cannot save people who do not want to be saved, Hannah said. And more importantly, we cannot save them at the cost of our own dignity. If we return now, crawling back to help, they will see it as weakness. They will learn nothing. Taemin spoke up, his voice measured. The economic data supports both arguments. Yes, people are dying. But if we return now without guarantees, without fundamental changes to how we are treated, we will end up right back where we started. The Council will make promises, accept our help, and then forget those promises the moment the crisis passes. Day One listened but said nothing. This was not his decision alone to make. Dr. Yunesio sat in her apartment on Earth, unable to look away from the news feeds. She watched footage from Galactic Medical Center 7, the hospital where she had worked for so many years. The emergency ward was overflowing. Patients lay on gurneys in the hallways. Medical staff moved between them frantically. Overwhelmed and under-equipped, she recognized Dr. Krital in the footage. He looked exhausted, his scales dull with stress. He was trying his best. They all were. But best was not enough when the supplies were gone and the equipment was failing. Day One found her sitting in the dark, staring at the screen. He sat beside her without speaking. I could have helped them, Yunesio whispered. I could have taught them more, prepared them better. You taught them everything you could, Day One said gently. You wrote manuals. You supervised their training. You spent 12 years preparing them to work without you. But I did not think they would actually have to. None of us did. We thought we would always be welcome. We were wrong. Yunesio turned to look at him, her eyes red. How do you live with it? Knowing we could help and choosing not to? I remember why we left, Day One said. I remember the vote. I remember Raxmal face when he called us servants. I remember 300 years of humanity building, maintaining, fixing, teaching, and helping, only to be told we should be grateful for the privilege of serving our betters. He paused. And I remember that if we return now without real change, we dishonor everyone who suffered under that system. In the council chambers, chaos had become the norm. Every session devolved into shouting matches. Delegates blamed each other, blamed the humans, blamed anyone but themselves. Chancellor Raxmal stood at the podium, trying to maintain order. His scales showed stress patterns, but his voice remained arrogant. The humans will return. They must. They cannot survive alone any more than we can. Ambassador Veen stood, their tall insectoid form commanding attention. High Chancellor, Earth's economy is actually growing. They have redirected all resources previously used for galactic infrastructure to their own development. Meanwhile, our worlds are collapsing. We are not in a standoff. We are in a freefall. Then we will develop our own infrastructure. Raxmal shouted. In 10 to 15 years at a cost we cannot afford, while millions die waiting, Veen responded calmly. Honored Chancellor, pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. We must negotiate with humanity. We must offer them real concessions, real respect, real equality. I will not beg. Raxmal's voice echoed through the chamber. A junior Valtharian delegate named Creason stood in the back. He was young, barely into his third decade, assigned to clerical duties. No one paid attention to him. That was about to change. Creason had spent weeks compiling data, bypassing the senior officials who kept softening the reports to avoid angering the Chancellor. He had the real numbers. The true numbers. He walked to a secondary terminal and overrode the security protocols. Across every screen in the council chamber, across every news feed in council space, his report appeared. Infrastructure collapse, 47% and accelerating. Confirmed deaths, 812 million. Projected deaths within 90 days, 2 billion. Critical system failures on 218 worlds. Complete societal breakdown projected within 12 weeks unless human support returns. The chamber fell silent. Delegates stared at the screens in horror. Even Raxmal seemed stunned. This is classified information, the Chancellor finally roared. Who authorized this broadcast? Creason stood calmly. No one, High Chancellor. But the people deserve to know the truth. We are dying because of pride. Billions will die unless we act. Arrest him. Raxmal ordered, security forces moved toward Creason, but dozens of delegates stood in their way. The younger delegate had done what the senior politicians could not. He had forced everyone to face reality. Within hours, Creason's report spread across the entire galaxy. Civilian populations learned for the first time just how desperate their situation truly was. On Veltheria Prime, protests erupted. On the Crete homeworld, the government collapsed. On 100 other worlds, people demanded their leaders fix the crisis by any means necessary. At the Quilith homeworld, the Hive Mothers made their decision. They would bypass the Council entirely and contact humanity directly. It was unprecedented. It was potentially illegal under Council law. It was also the only hope for survival. Ambassador Veen received their orders and prepared for departure. They would travel alone on an unarmed vessel, carrying nothing but a message. It was a massive gesture for the Quilith, a species that valued military strength and never showed weakness, but desperation had erased pride. On Earth, Taemin burst into Day One's office with his tablet. "We are receiving a transmission. A Quilith vessel requesting permission to enter Earth space. Ambassador Veen traveling alone." Day One looked up from his work. "The Council is sending negotiators?" "No, Veen is coming alone, unauthorized by the Council. They are requesting to meet with you personally." Hannah, who had been reviewing military reports in the corner, spoke up. "It could be a trick?" The Quilith do not do tricks," Day One said. "If Veen is coming alone, it means the Hive Mothers have authorized this. It means they are desperate enough to ignore Raxmal and the Council's authority. What will you tell them?" Taemin asked. Day One stood and walked to the window. Outside, Earth was peaceful. Humanity was safe, secure, and thriving in isolation. They could continue this way indefinitely, but 800 million people were already dead. Billions more would die unless something changed. "Tell Ambassador Veen they are welcome," Day One said quietly. "And prepare the meeting room. We will hear what they have to say." Across the galaxy, the Council teetered on the edge of complete collapse. Civilians rioted in the streets. Governments fell. Supply lines disintegrated. And in the Council chambers, Chancellor Raxmal sat alone at the podium. His pride the only thing preventing him from admitting the truth. They needed humanity, far more than humanity needed them. And soon, everyone would know it. Ambassador Veen's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. A small, unarmed vessel that looked fragile against the blue sky. For a Quilith to travel without warrior caste protection was almost unthinkable. It was a gesture that spoke louder than any words could. Day One stood in the landing area, watching the ship touch down with perfect precision. Beside him stood Hannah, Taemin, and several other key representatives of Earth's government. They had debated for hours about how to approach this meeting. In the end, they had decided on honesty. The ship's door opened. Veen emerged, their tall insectoid form moving with careful dignity. Their compound eyes caught the sunlight, reflecting it in patterns of blue and green. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. In their culture, this was the equivalent of approaching naked and defenseless. Day One stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Ambassador Veen, welcome to Earth." Veen returned the bow, their mandibles clicking in what passed for a greeting among their people. "Ambassador Day One, I thank you for receiving me. I know my presence here is ... complicated. You are acting without Council authorization," Day One said. "It was not a question. The Council is paralyzed by pride and politics," Veen replied. "The Hive Mother sent me because we cannot afford to wait for Chancellor Raxmal to see reason. People are dying. Not thousands, not millions. Billions, if this continues." They walked together into the government building. Inside, a conference room had been prepared. It was simple, functional, very human in design. No grand displays of wealth or power. Just a table, chairs adjusted for different species, and windows showing Earth's natural beauty. Veen settled into a specially designed chair and was silent for a moment. Then they began to speak, and their words carried the weight of someone who had seen too much suffering. I will not insult you with politics or negotiations, Veen said. I will speak truth. My people are starving. Not because of crop failures, but because we cannot transport food from our agricultural worlds. Our hospitals are overflowing with sick and injured, but medicine is not arriving. Our communications network is failing, isolating colonies that depend on contact with the homeworld. Day one listened without interruption. The Creek Collective has lost 3 colony worlds to complete infrastructure collapse. The Morov Unity is on the edge of civil war over food riots. 24 smaller species are facing extinction within the year. And the Valtharian Empire, for all their pride, is watching their civilization crumble. Veen's compound eyes fixed on day one. 812 million confirmed dead. Billions more will follow unless something changes. I'm not here to negotiate for the Council. I am here to negotiate for survival. Hannah leaned forward. The Council voted to make us servants. They voted to take our technology by force. They voted to occupy our worlds and control our people. Why should we help those who would enslave us? You should not, Veen said simply. If the Council still existed in its old form, I would not ask. But the Council is broken. Raxmal's government is collapsing. Half the member species have withdrawn support. The old system is dying. Taemin spoke up. And you want humanity to save a system that oppressed us? No, Veen said. I want humanity to help build a new one. The room fell silent. Outside, birds sang in the trees. Earth continued its peaceful existence while the galaxy burned. Day one finally spoke. Tell me what you propose. I propose nothing, Veen said. I am here to listen. What would it take for humanity to return? What would you require to resume the work you did for 3 centuries? Day one looked at the others. They had discussed this, planned for this possibility. But hearing Veen ask so directly, without games or politics, was somehow unexpected. Equality, Day one said. Not as a word, but as a reality. Humanity will never again be subject to council votes or council authority. Our sovereignty is absolute and non-negotiable. Veen clicked their mandibles in agreement. Acceptable. Continue. Taemin pulled up documents on a display screen. All services humanity provides will be paid for at fair market rates. No more contributions to the common good or mandatory service requirements. We are not the galaxy's maintenance staff. We are partners in trade. Acceptable. Hannah stood and walked to the window. Human colonies, trade routes, and citizens are inviolate. Any attack on humanity will result in complete and permanent withdrawal. No second chances. Acceptable. Our technology remains our property, Day one continued. No forced sharing. No inspections. No council oversight of our research or development. If we choose to share technology, it will be our choice, made freely. Acceptable. Veen looked at each of them. You have thought deeply about this. You have prepared for this negotiation. You knew we would come. We hoped you would come, Day one corrected. We hoped someone on the council would see reason before the death toll became unbearable. And if I agree to these terms? Veen asked. I cannot speak for the council. Raxmal will never accept this. Then Raxmal must be removed, Hannah said bluntly. We will not negotiate with a man who called us servants. Veen was quiet for a long moment. Then they stood, their tall forms somehow conveying both weariness and determination. I will return to council space. I will present your terms, and I will do everything in my power to make them reality. And if Raxmal refuses? Then I will help remove him from power. Veen's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. The Hive Mothers did not send me here to play politics. They sent me to save our species. I will do whatever is necessary. The next 3 days were chaotic beyond measure in council space. Ambassador Veen returned and immediately presented humanity's terms in an open council session. Raxmal, as expected, rejected them with fury. We will not be dictated to by former servants. He screamed. The council does not bow to humans. Veen stood calmly. Then the council will die, and we will all die with it. Creason, The young Valtharian who had exposed the true death toll stood as well. He was joined by dozens of other junior delegates. Representatives who were tired of watching their worlds burn while their leaders played political games. "High Chancellor," Creason said, his voice steady, "you are removed from office. Effective immediately. Under Emergency Council protocols, a majority of delegates can replace leadership during existential crises. We have that majority." Raxmol looked around the chamber in disbelief. Even many of his own Valtharian delegates were standing in support of the motion. His empire of pride had crumbled. Security forces moved in, not to arrest the rebels, but to escort the former chancellor from the chamber. He left screaming about betrayal and dishonor the new council leadership. A coalition led by Veen and supported by Creason and representatives from a dozen other species immediately transmitted acceptance of humanity's terms. On Earth, Day One received the message. He looked at the others and nodded slowly. "It is time," the return began immediately. Jiho coordinated massive relief operations. Human ships loaded with food, medicine, and supplies launched toward the sectors with the greatest need. Dr. Unesio boarded a medical transport, heading back to Galactic Medical Center 7. Accompanied by 24 other human doctors and crates of desperately needed supplies. Captain Jin Wu fired up the engines of the Morning Star and plotted courses to 100 different stations. He would carry cargo again, but this time with contracts that paid fair rates and guaranteed humanity's rights. Admiral Hyun Wu's fleet maintained their defensive positions. The military would not relax their guard. Trust would have to be earned over time. Baora returned to Station Kepler, finding the facility running on minimal power and desperate for help. She brought with her a team of engineers and, more importantly, new training protocols that would teach the station staff to maintain the systems themselves. No more dependency. No more assumptions, but humanity did not return as saviors or servants. They returned as equals. The new council convened in a redesigned chamber. The old architecture, with its clear hierarchy and superior positions for dominant species, was torn down. The new design placed all delegates on the same level, in a circle, where everyone could see everyone else as equals. Day One stood to give the opening address. Around him sat representatives from 47 species, including several new human colonies that now had direct representation. "We did not leave because we hate you," Day One said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "We left because we would not be anyone's servants. We returned because we believe in cooperation between equals. This galaxy is vast enough for all of us, rich enough for all of us, but only if we share it with mutual respect." He paused, looking around at faces both familiar and strange. The old council died because it was built on hierarchy and dominance. The new council will thrive only if it is built on partnership and respect. Humanity offers our friendship, our expertise, and our labor, but we offer it as free people choosing to help other free people. The chamber erupted in applause. Not the polite approval of political theater, but genuine, grateful recognition. Ambassador Veen was elected as the new High Chancellor, the first non-Valtharian to hold the position. Their first act was to commission a memorial for those who had died during the crisis. Over 800 million souls lost because of pride and politics. Creason, the young Valtharian who had exposed the truth, became the head of a new transparency commission, ensuring that the council could never again hide the consequences of its decisions. Months passed. The galaxy slowly healed. Supply chains were rebuilt, but this time with redundancy and multiple species involved. Technology sharing became genuine partnership, with humans teaching others not just to use systems, but to understand and improve them. Te-Min established trade agreements that benefited all parties. No more one-sided contracts. No more assumptions of human service. Hannah worked to create joint defense forces, with human ships serving alongside vessels from other species, protecting trade routes and colonies together. Min started educational exchange programs, bringing human students to alien worlds and alien students to Earth, building understanding that would prevent future crises. One evening, Day One stood in his apartment on Earth, looking up at the stars. His granddaughter, Sujin, a bright-eyed girl of 7, stood beside him. "Grandfather," she asked, "why did we have to leave the council if we were just going to come back?" Day one knelt down to her level, thinking about how to explain complicated truths to a child. "Sujin, imagine you have a friend who expects you to do all their homework, clean their room, and carry their books, but never says thank you and calls you their helper instead of their friend. Would you stay friends with them?" Sujin shook her head firmly. "No, that is not a friend." "Exactly. So we left. And when we left, they realized we were not just their helpers. We were people who deserved the same respect they gave each other. Now we are back, but this time as real friends. Will they remember? Will they be nice to us now?" Day one looked up at the stars again, thinking of Ambassador Veen's courage, of Creason's sacrifice, of the countless others who had fought for change. Some will remember. Some will forget and need to be reminded. But that is okay. We will never forget. And we will never let ourselves be treated as less than equal again. Sujin hugged him tight. In the sky above, stars twinkled, each one representing worlds where humans and aliens work together, not as masters and servants, but as partners in the vast adventure of civilization. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity had taught it with silence, with withdrawal, with the simple act of refusing to be taken for granted. And now, with dignity restored and respect earned, they would help build something better together.